Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James, joined once again by my co-host from Texas, Cody. How you doing today, Cody?
James, I am fantastic. Like you said, down in the big old state of Texas, where everything's just a little bit bigger, except for I don't even know. I'm just gonna make something up. Anyways, with that being said, I know it's not bigger is gas prices. We'll get to that later. We won't get to that.
Oh, that's true.
Just sharing that snippet. It's like $2.79, $2.99, something like that right now.
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah, compared to you guys, like what, $3.75 probably, $3.79.
$3.79 at most places. If you know where to go, then you can save about 20 cents if you go to the right areas.
Ooh, there you go. There you go.
How about Upper Peach right now is 20 cents cheaper than everybody else?
That's crazy.
How weird
Normally
is
it's Waterford. Normally it's Waterford.
Yeah. Waterford is actually more expensive than Upper Peach right now.
That's shocking. Anyways, James, how are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, man. Coming out of a relaxing weekend. My goal was very simple this weekend. Got home from work on Friday, and I didn't want to move my car until Monday morning when I had to go to work. And goal was achieved, man. I never left the house all weekend.
There you go.
Beautiful. But I got 2 workouts in: lower body Saturday, upper body Sunday. I'm nice and sore today.
Oh, I can't wait to get back in the gym. I've been doing, push-ups and so much. There's only so much you can do. Let me clarify. There's not so much you can do. There's a lot you can do with body weight, and I know that. I went to school for exercise science. I understand that. There's just something about there's something about free lifting weights, and it just feels better. And I am excited to get back in the gym this year because I took last year off.
Just last year?
Last year, let's be real. Work was a workout. Work was a workout and a half. So this year, not so much. But yeah, so real quick, we're going to go over the futures contracts that were signed by Pittsburgh. We're going to go over Steelers news, talk about the free agents upcoming for this offseason, and then we're going to get into the NFL. We are going to talk about the playoffs. We're going to talk about who won and who lost this weekend, minus tonight's game, Monday, because it is Monday Night Football tonight, which I hate Monday Night Football in the playoffs. I think that's absolutely stupid.
So dumb.
It's not fair. They're professional athletes. I get it, but there's a process of recovery and stuff that I don't think it's right. If they're not the last game played on Sunday, Tampa Bay or the Cowboys versus, I think the winner plays the Eagles, right?
No, that should be the Giants against the Eagle because they're the lowest seed. Yeah. So they're playing whoever the other, that would be against the Niners. The Niners would get the winner tonight.
Yeah. So again, that should be the last game played due to the fact that they're the last game played this out of fairness, but whatever. We'll get to that later. So again, Steelers news, and then we'll talk NFL. You got something to say?
I got something to say, man, when it comes to this whole thing. Playoffs! All right, we can move on to Steelers news. We can move to Steelers news.
You don't know that reference, you should.
Yeah, one of the best ever.
If you don't know that reference, James, they're too young.
That was Tony Dungy, wasn't it?
No, that was...
Oh, no, that was Mora. That was the Saints coach, Mora. Yeah,
but
that's right.
I thought he was wasn't he he was the coach for the Colts at the time. If I'm not mistaken.
He might have been. He was both, yeah.
I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that later. But yeah, no, that was not Tony Dungy. Get out of here. Tony Dungy wouldn't be like that. What's the other one? Was it Lovie Smith? No, what's the guy's name for the Bears when he's like, they came out and they were who we thought they were.
Yeah.
It wasn't Tony Dungy. It wasn't Lovie Smith. It was the other guy.
No.
I can't remember his name. Anyways,
yep.
We're going to do Steelers news first again, and then we'll get into the NFL. Because it is playoffs. Anyways, so Steelers did sign 10 guys immediately to futures contracts. First one being wide receiver Jamarcus Bradley. Defensive, we're going to go through these guys. We'll break them down a little bit if we have something to say about them. Defensive back Duke Dawson. Guard William Dunkel. Linebacker Emike Egbule. Running back Jason Huntley. Center Ryan McCullum. Safety Scott Nelson. Running back Master Teague. We've heard that name a lot this year. Wide receiver Cody White. We've heard that name a lot this year. Not just Cody, but also White. Tight end Rodney Williams. And then 4 more guys were added after that, which were wide receiver Dez Fitzpatrick, who was the wide receiver from Louisville that we were very kind of excited about, actually.
He was a 4th-round pick.
I'm still kind of excited about him. I'm not going to lie. Defensive backs, I can't read that one. Harper.
Mm-hmm. Madre Harper, Kenny Robinson, and Chris Wilcox, which they listed all of them as defensive backs, which I hate. Tell me if they're a corner or a safety. Yeah. That's what I really want to know about these guys. And then the day after those guys were signed, there was 3 more guys added on futures contracts, which just kind of shows you your initial wave of 10 guys that were currently on the practice squad. Yep. Then the 4 guys that we just talked about, and then 3 more guys which were also on the practice squad but chose not to sign on the first day when those contracts were offered. Those last 3 being running back Anthony McFarland Jr., not senior or the second, linebacker Chappelle Russell, and defensive lineman Renell Wren, which we had a lot of speculation about, and I was kind of sweating it, Cody, because we had our whole monologue about how the Steelers were trying to stash him for possibility of a future roster spot, and then he didn't get a contract the first 2 days, and I was like, oh no. Yep. Oh, this isn't going to look good. But
that makes you nervous.
Like we know what we're talking about afterwards.
Well, let's be real. So those 3 guys, more than likely, whether their agents or themselves, understood, hey, you may have more value on another team. Give it some time. See what other offers come in. Either no offers came in or no offers that were as enticing as the Steelers. Mm-hmm. So those 3 guys did sign. Let's talk about these guys real quick. The big ones I want to talk about for me personally, Cody White, Des Fitzpatrick, and Anthony McFarland, only because we've already talked about Renell Wren, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cody White, I think, we've seen some bits and pieces of him in preseason that he's played fairly well, even regular season a little bit. I believe he played a little bit this regular season or last regular season, one of the 2. He played.
I think last year he got up on the active a few times
for just like 1 or 2 weeks. And then Des Fitzpatrick, we saw him again. I can't remember if it was the Senior Bowl or if it was the East-West Shriners game.
Shrine or something. He tore up one of them. I think it was the East-West Shrine. He was really good.
He was phenomenal, man. And seeing him burn people and his route running abilities, and I directly, I think, corresponded him and related him to Deontay Johnson with his route running ability. Maybe not quite as crisp or smooth, but it's a start. And again, with all the speculation of what's going to happen with Deontay Johnson, having a guy like that on a futures deal is very enticing. And then Anthony McFarland Jr., again, a guy that I've been into and have been a fan of since he kind of came in. Unfortunately, he didn't get, I think, the opportunity that he thought he was going to get this year because you had the undrafted, spectacular Jaylen Warren come out of nowhere and just light it up this year. And why are you not going to allow someone who's running like that continue to get the ball? So, yeah, those are the 3 guys that I was most interested in, other than Renell Wren, obviously.
Yeah, I like all 3 of those as being possible impact players in the preseason for Pittsburgh next year, and some possibilities as far as roster spots, right? Really, the only 2 running back roster spots that are cemented are going to be Najee and Jaylen Warren. Yep. Benny Snell, as we're going to talk about in the future here, is going to be an unrestricted free agent. Anthony McFarland coming into camp. I think Master Teague worth talking about. He had a nice preseason going on this year before suffering an injury, missing the remainder of the preseason, and then eventually coming back to the practice squad. So I think he might get himself an opportunity, especially with Pittsburgh liking the bigger, stronger running backs. Master Teague does fit into that mold that they typically go for, and they love some Ohio State boys.
And even Jaylen Warren may not be bigger, but he's a strong, like, it's one of those compact guys. Like, he's just like a bulldozer.
Yeah, I consider him like a bigger back, even though he's only 5'8" or 9" or whatever. He's 215 and very, very well put together.
He reminds me a lot of Deuce Staley.
Very strong.
He reminds me of Deuce Staley.
Yeah, I remember Deuce Staley. I feel like he's way too explosive for what Deuce Staley was.
I agree, but just the I guess the size. I think Deuce Staley was around that size, if I'm not mistaken. And like seeing them, I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, it depends on what part of his career. By the time Deuce came to Pittsburgh, he was like 260.
That's true, from Philly, because he
was scattering anything by then.
And I'm pretty sure he's still coaching in the NFL too, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're correct. I believe he is a running backs coach somewhere. Yeah, a couple other guys that I'd like to talk about real quick before we move off of this target. Number one, Duke Dawson. Duke has some experience as a slot corner already in the NFL, and has had some success in doing so. So it could be somebody that could give a little competition to that nickel corner kind of position going into the next season.
Which, let's be real, we need competition at all the cornerback positions.
Correct. Yeah, he's no outside corner.
And he's fine.
Kind of a slower guy. Yeah, kind of a slower guy. Guard William Dunkel, I liked what I saw from him in the preseason this year. So he was a bigger, strong, mauler kind of guard. And what Pittsburgh has been hanging on to at guard has been kind of thinner dudes.
Yeah.
Either undersized guys or taller, thinner guys, and nobody that can really maul you off the line.
Or short arm guys.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Hassenauer's probably short arm too, right?
Yeah.
So our top 2 interior offensive linemen this year, well, I guess Kendrick Green was probably the 3rd interior offensive lineman if you counted Jesse Davis.
Yep.
But yeah, 2 of the 3 guys there were size guys with shorter arms. So you'd like to get some size back in that offensive line room. So those are guys that kind of stuck out for me. And I just think there's an opportunity there for William Dunkel with the turnover in the offensive line group in the back end of that roster. They're looking for better depth, and maybe he can provide that with a real opportunity in the offseason.
Yeah. Anyone else you want to talk about, or is that it for this list?
That's kind of the crew to me, man. I think we touched on Rennell Wren enough. Real opportunity for him with a lack of guys coming back. So
yeah,
I don't think we really need to go too much further on him. And I think, like you touched on, smart move for Anthony McFarland. I think there's roster spots to be had at the running back position, and I do not see Pittsburgh drafting a running back.
They better not.
Yeah,
they better not.
Waste.
So with that being said, we're moving on to some fun news. Something, not that Future's contract isn't fun, but some really exciting news for a starter for Pittsburgh. Minkah Fitzpatrick was selected for his 3rd All-Pro, 3rd first-team All-Pro, but his first time as a first-team All-Pro for the Players Association, which was all players voting. But that's granted, this was also the first time they did this, so whatever.
Yeah,
he's 1 for 1. He's 1 for 1.
Perfect record for Minkah. You got to be happy for him. What a stellar start to his career, already having Pro Bowls and All-Pro appearances. Yep. This young into his career. I was kind of surprised by the list to not see Alex Highsmith or Cam Hayward on that second team at least.
Yes.
I can see, as far as Alex Highsmith not having the big name yet to get a first team vote, but he should have at least been second team, I thought. And Cam,
he's top 6. How many? Top 6 in sacks. He should have easily been second team.
Yeah. How many defensive linemen really have had a better season than Cam had? I think what worked against Cam this year is that he had a slow start.
That's
I think
fair.
The second half of his season was drastically better than the first half, and that worked against him in all these votings. So hopefully he can get a better start off next year to get into that Pro Bowl and maybe All-Pro once more and pad those stats a little more and get himself into the Hall of Fame, because I think he is that caliber of player for Pittsburgh, no doubt.
Oh, 100%. Now we're going to switch kind of where we're at. We have already talked about it a little bit, but we're going to go into depth about the free agents that Pittsburgh is going to be dealing with this year. So guys that were on the team last year, this past year, or multiple years, whatever, however you want to look at it, that are either unrestricted free agents or restricted free agents or exclusive rights free agents for this year. I know what I'm talking about, James.
I'm proud of you right now.
Got it, James. So we're very limited on the restricted free agents and the exclusive rights free agents. I believe there's only 2 of each on the team. So we're just going to kind of go down this list, James. I'll skip the restricted free agents and the exclusive rights until the very end.
Save them to the end. I'm in with that.
But so you got Larry Ogunjobi at the start. Larry Ogunjobi being a 28-year-old defensive end for Pittsburgh is an unrestricted free agent. You have Mason Rudolph, 27 and a half, unrestricted free agent. Devin Bush, 24 and a half. I believe that this was his 5th year, correct? They took the 5th-year option or no?
This was his 4th year. They chose not to do the 5th-year option. Yes.
Thank the Lord.
Now, do you want to talk about these guys a little as we're going through it, or just list them all and then go back to it?
It doesn't matter to me. Either way, honestly.
I think let's talk about them a little bit as we go instead of coming back to them.
That's fine.
With Larry Ogunjobi being the first one on, probably the best paid of all these guys on the list as well, and had a starting position on the defense. To me, if if you were going to retain Larry Ogunjobi for a future contract, I would want to pay less than what they paid this year at $8 million because you need more in the pass rush department from your number 2 defensive lineman. And I didn't think it was enough what we got out of him. He was a penetration style guy against the run, which did leave some holes wide open sometimes because he's too worried about getting into the backfield, not in being where he's supposed to be. So I would rather move on from Larry Ogunjobi. I don't know.
I would rather move on as long as there's a plan to replace, whether that's through the draft or what. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like.
Don't move on just to move on and then only have Isaiah Loudermilk there.
Yes. Yeah. You got to have some depth there. You got to have, and again, this is a position that I think Pittsburgh's been good about replacing in the past. I don't think we've seen a year where we had 2 bad defensive ends. I don't think I've seen that since I've started following football, which was the late 90s. You know, we had Aaron Smith, Brett Kiesel, and then you got, and then immediately Kimo Van Olenhoff, and then Cam Hayward came into the picture, and he's been here ever since.
And Stephon Tuitt for a number of years until his Tyson Alualu.
You've had all these guys come in and play very, very well, and I don't see Pittsburgh just abandoning that position because again. No matter if Cam Hayward has another 2 good years in him or another 4 good years in him, like he wants to have, you got to have that replacement in mind and get guys in there and figure that out. So I whether it's through the draft or free agency or whether they're stowing someone on the practice squad or somewhere, not the practice squad now, obviously the futures contracts, there's somebody there that they think that can come in and fill the gap that he would be left with. I agree that we should move on. But if you're going to sign him again, $8 million was just too much money for someone that he was going to offer as little as he did this year. Even I would take him, honestly, James, at 5.5. I would take him at 5.5 or 6.
I'd consider him at that level too. Just, I feel it's a better.
Yeah. He's not going to sign no veteran minimum. Not at all.
No, God, no. No, especially when he had a deal in the works with the Bears for $12 million a year before that fell through due to him failing his physical.
Yeah.
So you got to figure he's trying to get back to that kind of dollar amount before he doesn't have much time.
And in all honesty, if I was him, if he doesn't get an offer from a playoff team this year, I would stick with Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's on the up and up. Let's be real. So.
Yep, that might be difficult because I wouldn't pay him a ton if I was Pittsburgh, but
nope.
Absolutely. We'll see what they decide to do. I think it's a little more cut and dry with the next guy on the list of Mason Rudolph. I don't think he has any desire to come back to Pittsburgh, being an unrestricted free agent. I don't think they'll have any desire to keep him as well. If you were to let Mitch Trubisky go, sure, Mason would be a good number 2, but I don't think he'll want anything to do with coming back, and I think it's time to move on from him.
But again, let's not be mistaken. These guys can filter in and play a role in compensatory picks as well.
Yeah, if they get enough money in free agency. I don't think Mason would factor into it. I think Larry O could, though. That's another one of the reasons that I'm okay with letting him go is because I feel like Larry O could get some money in free agency. You might be able to get something compensatory-wise.
You don't think Mason would get close? I think Mason could get close. For the right team.
He's going to be signed as a number 2, though. That's the thing.
Depends on where he goes.
I don't think anybody's trying to sign him as a number 1, bro.
You're probably right, but I'm just being optimistic.
I think his ceiling's like $3 or $4 million a year, and
Jaguars could use him.
Really?
Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions in the first half. Granted, he let him back, but that was more on the Chargers losing. We'll get to that later. Next guy on the list, Devin Bush. We already know he's probably gone.
Moving on.
A, we don't want him. B, he's already talked about potentially signing with another team and looking for playing for a coach that has actually played in the NFL. He's mentioned that already. So there's no conversation there. Devin Bush could get paid. There is that possibility. I think, again, I don't know to what extent, but there's a chance that he could get paid enough to matter in the compensatory formula.
I could see that. I could see him getting $5 or $6 million a year because of somebody liking the previous pedigree and the recorded athleticism as far as what he tested. He really hasn't showed that on the field since his rookie season. So I wouldn't want to retain him, even at the minimum, like even if he came back as a minimum value veteran.
Someone's going to pay him. Someone's going to pay him.
I wouldn't see the point in bringing him back on a small contract, though, because you already know what he is, and it's something that doesn't fit in our system. And when it comes down to games against other division opponents, we don't even want to play him because he's not physical enough for the division. So there's no point in bringing him back. He just doesn't fit our system. Probably better in a 4-3 is my guess. Next guy on the list, though, Cameron Sutton, I think probably ought to be the biggest priority of all these guys. Cameron had a really nice season for Pittsburgh as a number 2 corner, 3 interceptions, probably double digits, I think, on pass deflections before the season was over.
Easily. He was probably
I think he was 11 or 12. 15 would be even more impressive if he was up there.
I'll tell you, keep talking
I know
about
he had a lot, though. Yeah, he had a lot, though. And this is the kind of guy that Pittsburgh likes to pay. A third-round pick that turned into a very good corner. We can't call him a great corner. He's not an elite corner. He's not even probably a number 1, but as a number 2, you're not going to get a lot better as a number 2 corner than what Cameron Sutton is. So I am really hoping that Pittsburgh is able to bring him back. The problem may end up being the dollar amount. It might end up being pretty expensive because he did have a pretty good season. And I don't know if you can get him back from less than $10 million a year. Corners go for a lot of money. So I would not be surprised if Cameron Sutton costs a lot of money, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they release somebody like Ahkello Witherspoon.
15.
15, good call, man.
15.
You've seen that recently.
I haven't. I counted all year, James.
I remember. Listen,
remember every one
on my wall. There's hash marks next to my computer here.
There is
of every fast breakup by Kevin Sutton.
That's per Pro Football Focus, which is normally fairly accurate.
They're pretty good about that.
But yeah, I agree. Cam Sutton should be the priority again, with that secondary being as sketchy as it is. Again, we have William Jackson III on the team. We never got to see him play. We don't know. It's actually exciting to a degree of not knowing what we have. It's very similar in the cornerback room as it is the wide receiver room. As
far as Calvin Austin III.
You have Calvin Austin III. You haven't even seen yet. You have William Jackson III. It must just be a third thing. I don't know. But both guys are going to be like they're brand new to the team next year, which is going to be actually really exciting. And so it gives you 2 guys that are coming in fresh, clean slate. So that's actually really exciting. But again, Cameron Sutton, with how bad we've been for so many freaking years in the cornerback room and the secondary room in general, you got to keep this guy. Just like they kept Minka, I think we have to prioritize Cameron Sutton here. Pay him what he's worth. Because let me clarify, I don't think he's a top 20 corner. I don't think he's a top 20.
No.
Maybe top 32, maybe top, around that area, but I don't think he's a top 20. I don't think he should be paid as one of the top 10 corners, but he should be paid fairly well, and I think he deserves it, and I think we can afford it. The Pittsburgh has a lot of cap room this year, so.
And fans are always complaining about Pittsburgh not doing well drafting corners. This was a good pick.
Yep.
When they drafted Cam Sutton in the 3rd round, this was hitting on a corner, and it's tough to think that they're going to want to let him walk away. Even after this being his 2nd contract he's already had with the team, you have a feeling that they would want to retain him and try to make him a Steeler lifer. Another guy that just looks good in black and gold, man, Derek Watt.
What?
Next guy on our list. Yeah, that's right. That's what opposing teams were saying on 3rd down when all of a sudden, hey, it's a 1st down again because Derek Watt got the ball.
Yep.
Very successful in his conversions on 3rd down and 4th down this season, only not converting once on the entire year. I felt like it was a little bit of a regression on special teams for him as far as kick coverage and punt coverage. Didn't see him too much making the plays, but he was always around the ball.
Yep.
But his development on the offensive side of things was very clear and very impactful, continuing drives as the Steelers' offense became more successful in the second half of the season. Converting on 3rd down was a very much so improved thing from the first half of the season. And a lot of that comes to guys like Derek Watt understanding their role and executing it well. So for a moderate contract, I'm in on bringing Derek Watt back. I don't see any point in resetting there when you got something that's successful.
And he made his value last year was $3.25 million. Pay him $4 million. I don't care. Like, he's worth it. He's worth it for those 3rd down conversions alone.
Yeah, and they're talking about the cap going up to like $230 million
Okay,
year, so
pay him $5.
You can afford to give a
$5.
fullback $4 million. You
Pay him
know,
$5, whatever.
People were complaining about that last year, like, "Oh, I can't believe they're paying him that much money." You're like, bro, it is literally % of of your payroll. I think you can afford a starting player at 1% of the payroll.
Yeah, literally. Next guy on the list is Jesse Davis, the guard. He's 31. Didn't really play much. I have no. Bring him back if you're familiar with him. Sure, he knows the system. If you don't draft the offensive line, whatever. This is to me a low priority position right here. Player, I should
contract. Yeah, minimum contract that does not affect the salary cap in any way. I'm in. Anything higher than that, I'm probably out.
Yep.
Because they didn't even really trust him to do anything the entire year. So
yeah, Tyson Alualu, you want to start this guy?
Yeah, and I'm going to end it just as quick as I started. Tyson Alualu, you know what? We really appreciate all the years of service up until this last season. He was a pretty dominant player on the defensive line for Pittsburgh. He is no longer that. He's a shell of what he used to be, and he's like 35 or 36, I think, at this stage too.
He is 30. He'll be 36 in like 4 months, 3 months, something like that.
Yeah. So I think it's time to allow him to gracefully retire. No point in pursuing that. You need something younger and more dominant on the interior.
Yeah. Next guy on the list, Marcus Allen, safety, hybrid, middle linebacker. Drop him, get rid of him. I think at this point he can't do either one to a high enough level to be on the team. It's not even like he's making plays on special teams. I would say not a priority. Unless you just need a body in the room, quite frankly, I'd rather take one of the futures contracts guys than him.
Yeah, and at his price point too, what's the point? He was like $2.5 million last year.
Yeah.
So even if you're able to retain him at a minimum, see the point, because his biggest value was as the personal protector to the punter, and somebody else played that role at the end of the year and fine doing so. And probably maybe even has a future with the team. So
yeah.
Moving on from that, but the next guy I know you're going to want to, Cody, one of your favorites on the team, and somebody who could be very instrumental in free agent acquisition this offseason. Maybe his brother coming to the Steelers, which is a pretty big rumor.
Don't care.
Pretty big rumor.
if you can sign Tremon Edmonds first, then bring Terrell back. Sure. But
Tremaine, you mean?
Whatever. If you can't get him, it's not worth it. I'm sorry, Terrell Edmonds is not the solution at strong safety, in my opinion. He's just, and don't get me wrong, he had a good year this year. I'll give you that. He played well. He
helped contain deep balls, man. We didn't get beat deep season, only a couple games.
He did.
I think improved play from Terrell. He's just never going to be a Pro Bowler. He's never going to be an All-Pro.
Yeah.
He's just your steady guy. He works really well with Minkah Fitzpatrick.
He does.
That's the biggest thing I can say for him right now, is that Minkah plays really well beside Terrell Edmonds. So to me, if you can re-sign him on an inexpensive deal where it's only like $3 million a year or something, and it's like a 2-year deal, and it's just slapping a Band-Aid on the position for a couple years, I'm okay with it, but I'm not paying him big money. I don't think he was the weak point on the defense for the first time in a few seasons. I would say
I'll give you that.
It was weaker at nose tackle. It was oftentimes weaker at the defensive end, opposite of Cam Hayward, and middle linebacker as well, oftentimes weaker. And number one corner, because there wasn't one. So he was dang near middle of the road on defense, which is an improvement from what he was. And I don't know if that's just the drop-off in talent at the other positions or him improving or both. Don't pay him the farm. I'm only okay with it on a small deal as far as years and money.
Yeah, again, at this point, he's been in the league for 5 years. They did pick up Terrell Edmonds' 5th-year option, so this was his 5th season with us. He's going to be 26 in like a month. Sign a 2-year,
which is still really young,
very young. But put a 2-year deal, put a 3-year deal. I don't care if it's low.
I wouldn't even want the 3-year, and I'm more in the corner.
Yeah, I agree. So that's where we're at. Next guy on the list is Robert Spillane. Quite frankly, my personal opinion of Robert Spillane is you bring him back just for the fact that you're not bringing back Devin Bush.
And probably moving on from Marcus Allen as well.
Correct. Yeah. And they have him listed as a safety. He's technically plays both, more middle linebacker, whatever, in those nickel defenses or dime defenses. But he didn't play often. Let me clarify. He didn't play at all. Be real. He's just a backup. He's just a backup. So I think you bring back Robert Spillane. We've seen highs and lows from him. I think that we haven't seen the best of his abilities yet, even though he is older. He's 27. I do think that Robert Spillane has some improving he can do to be even better than what he has been. And he's not afraid of making contact in the hole. And that's what I love out of him for sure.
Yeah, I know that's a big thing for you guys that are willing to make contact like that. Beth definitely a lot better at the end of the season here than it was at the beginning or even the middle of the season. Stout against the run. You even saw some diagnosis of some screenplays going on there.
You did.
At the end of the season. So I like how he's a thinker. I like how he diagnoses and he plays stout against the run. In the AFC North, you need guys willing to play stout against the run, and he is absolutely that. Do I think that he's going to develop into a Pro Bowler? No, I do not. So again, I'm in that camp of, can you sign him to a deal where it's $2 or $3 million a year for a couple of years? If so, that does help to moderately solidify the position and help not go into next year with people that don't have a clue what's going on.
Yeah.
Speaking of people that look like they didn't have a clue what's going on, Malik Reed, our next guy on the list, didn't even get a jersey the last 2 games because it's AFC North football, and he can't stop the run.
Nope.
So in my opinion, move on from Malik Reed. He didn't give you anything as a pass rusher, and he gave you less against the run. No point in hanging on to him.
Yep. Next guy on the list, Chris. Let me clarify. I'm moving on. I don't even care. I agree with you.
I love it.
Next guy on the list, Chris Wormley, defensive tackle. Here's my thought. If Rennell Wren is what we think he is, and he's someone that they're trying to develop and keep on the team, keep Wormley. He's old enough and cheap enough that he's a body in the room. He plays well enough with the guys there already. The chemistry's there. You can't get all these positions taken care of in one draft. It's just not possible. Mm-hmm. If there's not 2 or 3 guys that you're eyeing up in the draft that you can they're spaced out enough in their talent that you're for sure going to get one, bring Wormley back, let him be on the team. 1 or 2 year deal at most. He's almost 30 years old at this point. He's 29. Again, he was $2.25 million this year. Bring him back for 2.5, 2.25, whatever. That's fine. I'm not up for paying him more money than what he did because he's just a backup. He's not anything crazy. He wasn't the starting defensive tackle. And I think we're going to see improvement at defensive tackle moving forward as well.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you on this. I would be perfectly fine with Pittsburgh moving on from Chris Wormley just because, again, he's almost 30. Yep. His best year in the NFL was 2 years ago with Pittsburgh. So if somehow he returns to that form next season, Chris Wormley with 7 sacks is something that's definitely of consequence, right?
Yep.
That's significant if you can get that out of your 2 defensive linemen. Problem is, it's the only time he did it in his career, and I would not expect him to duplicate that next season. So I think if you can find a contract that is not guaranteed, inexpensive, bring him in just to see what's going on. But I would certainly hope that Pittsburgh will at least address the defensive line in free agency once and with one of those first 3 picks once. I think they need to do it at least twice just to make sure that we've got all 3 starting positions locked down, because I think you need a better nose tackle and you need a better defensive end opposite Cameron Hayward.
Yep, I agree. Next guy on the list.
Man, I'm a mixed bag on this next one, man, Cody.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm not.
I like DeMonte Casey. I love what he does on the field. He's got a great IQ, good feel for the ball. He seems like he has good athleticism. He's a hair on the small side. The problem is the guy's a free safety, and we have the best in the league at that position. And I would love to just re-sign him and put him next to Minkah Fitzpatrick, but he's so doggone small that it's just not a good matchup for him to go against tight ends and running backs and be assigned with stopping the run all the time. I feel like he'd just end up injured again. So I would love to retain DeMonte Casey. I just don't know that he would be interested in coming to Pittsburgh, knowing that he would just be the number 3 safety again.
I understand that aspect of it. I think bring him back just for the fact that what we saw out of him. He's made plays. He made pass breakups. He has an interception. Maybe even more than
2
one
on
this
the
year.
year.
Yeah, 2.
Yeah, he had 2.
From a third string safety? Come on.
Great.
Excuse me, at less than $2 million a year, you can get 2 interceptions. That's more than an interception per million. Like, I'll take it.
And that's part of my concern with him is I think that somebody's going to want to pay him. Somebody's going to look at him and say, he did on the field is worth starting for us, and they're going to pay him
and
more.
That's fine. I'll let him do it. But if you can bring him back for $2 million, I think bring him back. And he wants to be here.
I don't think he would do it.
I don't think
he would do it that cheap.
But whatever.
I'd be okay with. Let me put this out there. I would be okay with paying a guy like that up to $4 or $5 million. I would be
3.5.
because I think that the value is there.
3.5. I'm calling it.
I'd give him
Re-sign him.
4.5.
Re-sign him for 2 years at $3.5 million a year. Bet. Called it here first.
I mean, I think that's a great value for Pittsburgh if they could get him that reasonable. I think that would be tremendous value.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Next guy on the list, Trenton Scott. He's a guard. Get rid of him.
Trenton Scott, they have him listed as a guard. He was the number tackle for Pittsburgh this last season. And not because he was good, because they had no other options. So I think they'll probably bring him back on a veteran minimum. I'm okay with it on a veteran minimum, a penny above it.
Okay, fair enough. I just say get rid of him because I don't care. Next guy, strong safety, Carl Joseph, 29 years old.
He's still in the league?
He's still in the league. He's still on the team. Carl Joseph is old. At this point, if you don't bring back Terrell Edmonds, bring him back. But at the same time, I don't think there's any point in having a 29-year-old strong safety if you don't bring back your 26-year-old.
Yeah. I feel like that would be a downgrade from Terrell Edmonds. Again, veteran minimum, bring him to camp. If everybody gets injured, he makes the team. Otherwise, I don't see any chance of it, really. Only nice thing about a guy like that is at least he's got some experience playing in the league, and he's willing to sit on the practice squad again.
He is.
So, no harm in bringing him into camp on a veteran minimum deal, but I wouldn't give him it.
Bro, at $1 million a year, I will come sit on your practice squad. I'll be the hit dummy. Yeah. You can hit me all you want. I'll just take it. I'll just take it.
Yeah, I'll put more pads on than you ever seen on somebody for $1 million. That's
what I'm saying.
Like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Next guy on the list, James, I think is the third most important guy on the list.
Wow.
Third most. We already talked about the first most. Cameron Sutton. Sutton, in my opinion, is number 1. We haven't talked about number 2 yet. And I think this next guy is number 3. At the price for what he does.
At the price for what he does, he's tremendous.
That's my point.
And I bring him back on a $2 million a year deal because he's one of the best gunners in the entire NFL.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Miles Boykin be worth it for. You can get him back for $2 million a year. I'd do it just because he's absolutely tremendous as a gunner. Special teams value through the roof.
Yep.
It's really such an unheralded position when you have 2 good gunners. Which James Pierre was a pretty good one. Miles Boykin was an amazing. When you have 2 really good gunners, that makes your punter look incredible because nobody ever returns the punt.
Yep.
It flips the field big time for you when the offensive's struggling to have really good gunners. So, yeah, I'm with you. Bring him back if you can.
Are you with me that he's the third most important on the list? I'm curious.
No, probably not.
Okay, that's fine.
We have a differing opinion on a safety.
That's fair. I'll give you that. So I'm saying Miles Boykin, bring him back no matter what. Pay the young fella, get him in the building. We're gonna skip one real quick because it's a exclusive rights free agent. Next guy on the list, Benny Snell Jr., running back. Benny is gonna be 25 this year. Paid him less than $1 million. At this point, if you can keep him that cheap, bring him back. I don't expect him to be back though.
Benny Snell football. You guys know I love Benny Snell football. It's been fun having him on the team. I'm glad that he got the chance this season to put some good tape out there, and I think he's going to take advantage of that and get a contract with somebody somewhere else to be a number 2. Yep. You never know. Maybe even within North. Cleveland's going to be looking for somebody. They might pick him up.
Very
He'd probably fit their scheme pretty well.
true.
But I don't think he'll be back with Pittsburgh. I'd like to see it because he is a good special teamer as well.
Yeah.
But I think they'll move forward with a rookie or somebody that's going to be cheaper than $1 million.
Yep. And then the last unrestricted free agent that we're going to talk about is my second most important player I think Pittsburgh needs to bring back. And that is one tight end, Zach Gentry. He's 26 years old. They paid him less than $1 million this year. And here's my reasoning, James, which I don't even think I need to explain it to you, but just so you understand where I'm at. If you sign him to a 3 or 4 year deal, your tight end room is set for the next 3 or 4 years. You don't got to worry about crap.
Yep.
I'm not worried about injuries. Man. I'm not worried about anything. You got, I mean, even if you want to include Derek Watt in that room, because he can go out there and play it technically.
Yeah.
Sure. You got Pat Freiermuth for probably 3 more years for sure. You have Connor Hayward.
2 more years, I guess, right? Because he was a second round pick.
He was a second.
So he only got 2 more years.
So 2 more years for him.
He's going to get a big deal. Let's be real. Once that 4th year's up, he's getting his extension.
Oh my gosh, yeah, he is. He might get it before. Yeah. Before the year's up. But and then you have Connor Hayward, who's going to be sitting. He has 3 more years left, and then Derek Watt, who they're more than likely. I mean, Zach Gentry was enough of a role player that he could come in, and I got comfortable with him this year, especially with blocking. He's improved. Yeah. He improved drastically this year with blocking and catching. Yeah. His ability to catch and get yards after the catch was fantastic this year. So
I loved his willingness to lower a shoulder and run somebody over.
Yep.
I feel like him and Pat Freiermuth must have been working on some drills for that in the offseason because both of them seem to be better at it this year than they were previous years. I'm with you. Bring back Zach. I love it. Let me get some 81 at tight end. It started a great tradition with Jesse James. It's continuing with a very good number 2 tight end in Zach Gentry. Again, you can't break the bank. You can't give him $5 million a year.
No.
But if you bring him back for $3 or $4 million a year, even though he'd be making more money than Pat Freiermuth at that point, I would be on board with doing it.
I think because you could get him back for 2. You could get him back for 2. I don't think he has enough tape out there to go for higher than that.
That's rare. I mean, Jesse James got $5 million a year, and he didn't have a lot.
Yeah, but he was the starter, so he played more. Jesse James's number were
only
drastic.
Last year, though.
That's fair.
He was behind Heath Miller his whole career until his last year.
I don't know. We'll see what happens. Again, so my 3 big guys: Miles Boykin, number 3, Zach Gentry, number 2, and then Cam Sutton, number 1.
Yeah, I would have been Cam Sutton, number 1. I would probably actually put Terrell Edmonds at 2, Gentry at 3, and then I would be pretty close with Miles Boykin, Derek Watt, Robert Spillane, all of them I'd like to have, but it's all at the right price kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. Next guys we're going to go over are the restricted free agents. There's only 2 of them. J.C. Hassenauer, the center, he's going to be 29 this year. I think you bring him back.
He's that old?
He's that old. I think you got to bring him back, though. The offensive line is so not bad, but lacking depth right now. We saw the improvement all year long. Granted, it took all year to see it. But you gotta keep these guys in the room that know the playbook, because the last thing you want is to specifically rely on bringing new guys in. I think J.C. Hassenauer is a guy that you can bring in at the right price, and he's a solid backup if emergency fill-in for injuries and stuff like that.
Hassenauer, I like him as a backup. My issue here is going to be I don't think you can tender him.
That's fair.
Because that'll give him $2.75 million on the restricted free agent tender. So I feel like you have to skip tendering him and then attempt to bring him back at a lower dollar amount, because it's just too high of a dollar amount for a guy that's just a backup center and not a very good backup guard. I feel like he's a decent backup center, but not that great as a backup guard.
Yep.
So I'm cool with bringing him back, but it's got to be the right dollar amount, and I think it needs than 2.75, just because Pittsburgh is going to be so up against it as far as the cap.
Yeah. Next guy on the list, James Pierre, the cornerback. He's only 26. He'll be 27 this year. I don't think bring him back. What, you want to keep him?
Oh, I'm slapping that tag on him day one, man. This is the youngest corner in the room, and with some promise to him as well. Good size and speed combo. I think when you're looking at the possibility of Possibly losing Cameron Sutton. Again, we want them to retain him. Possibly moving on from Akello Witherspoon because he didn't do much, and you're going to pay him $4 million a year next year for a guy that was getting burned and getting benched. And then the possibility of also losing William Jackson III because you might have to pay him $12 million, and you don't even know if he can play right.
True.
So I'm in on putting that restricted free agent tag on James Pierre and bringing him back.
I don't think we're keeping him on that tender.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think someone else would come in.
I think if you try to get him back, but not on a tender, he signs with somebody else because he put enough tape out there last year that was decent.
That's fair. Even the year before. He had some good plays. He ended the game against Denver with an interception. So yeah, I mean, if you can bring him back at the right price, like you said, he is the youngest corner in the room. He's a solid second gunner. Kind of helped out the special teams aspect of the game, especially if you look at the value there. Potentially bringing him back. I'm not against it, I should say. And then the last two guys we're going to look at, Jameer Jones, linebacker, who's only not even 25 yet. It's tough for me wanting to bring him back. I don't know. He's just a depth piece at this point. I don't see him.
Yeah, that's it. He doesn't move the needle for me in any way.
Exactly. That's where I'm at.
Bring him back. It's fine. But don't expect him to be anything that really contributes in any way.
Yeah. And then the last,
I'm bigger on the last guy than I am on
and the
Jameer
last guy
Jones.
is technically the youngest cornerback in the room, even though he's a safety. So
yeah, God, they really messed up some of these positions, man.
They did. But yeah.
Elijah Riley. We saw Elijah Riley get brought onto the team before the third preseason game and played very well in the third preseason game. Was on the practice squad most of the season, but got elevated a couple weeks before the end of the year, and then played as the personal protector when Marcus Allen went out and did a good job at it. Yep. Seems to me to be the fourth best safety on the team right now as a safety. I would say that he's a better safety than both Trey Norwood and then also Miles Killebrew. So I would love to see him back, especially an exclusive rights guy is a cheap one to sign. So I think there's no reason not to bring him to camp. And you might be surprised. He might be one of those guys that supplants somebody like Miles Killebrew since he really didn't do anything on special teams.
True. He had 2 blocks 2 years ago, but nothing this past year. So
yeah, what do you have, like 3 tackles all season on special teams? It wasn't significant, man.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't significant enough for him to be super excited about him coming back. Which again, Miles Killebrew's on contract, so it doesn't matter. But that's going to be it for the free agents. Next week, James and I will probably, and I'm surprising James with this, he doesn't know this yet, but next week, James and I will probably break down maybe our top 5 or 6 targets in free agency who are not on the Steelers. Maybe we can come in with that list ahead of time and talk about that. I know, I got you excited with that one, didn't I?
I like it.
But
the
now
table's rising.
It is. Now we're going to talk real quick about the playoffs, and I'm not going to go into details about this. We're trying to keep these preseason or off-season shows a little shorter. We're running about 48 minutes right now. Yeah. 49ers did beat the Seahawks in the widest margin of victory in this playoff so far, drastically 41-23. A division game, you kind of expect that to be closer, but 49ers with Brock Purdy leading with four touchdowns, I believe, total in the game. Brock Purdy is showing that Mr. Irrelevant is not always irrelevant. Yep. So props to 49ers for hitting gold mine right there, at least so far. Again, all of this could change once you get film on him and once you study a player, you can plan better. So don't be too fooled by this. And again, 49ers will have a tough task next week with either Tampa Bay or Dallas. Whoever wins tonight. Jacksonville Jaguars came back from, I believe, the largest deficit in playoff history, down 27-0 at one point, 131-30. Third largest, excuse me.
Third largest, yeah.
Wild game.
It was nuts, man. I didn't think they had a chance when they were down 27. I looked at my wife and I said, these Jaguars don't even belong in the playoffs. How the heck did they get here? And then they showed they belong. Trevor Lawrence had one heck of a second half of the game.
And I will argue
the team just never gave up.
The team props to them for never giving up, but the Chargers coaching staff just they stopped playing. If you would have stayed playing press man on them, the Jaguars don't have a wide receiver to beat that. And then they backed off in the second half and they got torched the entire second half. Very, very unfortunate. Kind of similar thing that happened with Pittsburgh playing the Browns when we went down 28-0 and then Ben threw for like 300 some yards. Well, they're playing off ball defense.
Yeah.
So that's going to happen. But the Jaguars took advantage of it. Bills-Dolphins game was a closer one than I expected. Bills winning only by 3, 34-31. Still pushing for Damar Hamlin here. They're and ironically, that I believe that day or the day before was the first time that Damar Hamlin actually got with the team again since being released from the hospital. So that was good news for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And they had a big lead too. The Bills were up 17-0, then blew the lead.
Yep.
So there was a lot of that this weekend. Teams getting up big that were the heavy favorites and then blowing the lead.
Yep. You want to go over these next two, or do you have the list up?
Yeah, absolutely. So then we had the Giants and Vikings in another game that just didn't go the way we expected it. Everybody thought the Vikings would have walked all over them.
Kirk Cousins is still Kirk Cousins.
That's apparently. But you know what? Saquon Barkley is still Saquon Barkley.
That is also true.
And that man had himself a real nice game, including 2 touchdowns rushing the ball. So there's something to be said about dominant running backs in the playoffs. In Saquon proving to be exactly that. And man, it's just a dark horse. What the heck are we going to see out of them? Well, they're going to have the Eagles next week. So that'll be a very good test for them. If they're legit.
Division game, so you never know.
Yeah.
Speaking of division game. Speaking of division game.
Man. Yeah, man. The battle of the bums, the Bengals versus the Ravens. Yeah, I said it. I don't like either team right now.
I mean, whatever.
Came down to the final moments of the game. The game was all tied up at 17, right?
Ravens were about to score.
Down the field. Yeah, Tyler Huntley pulled a Najee Harris and tried to jump over the pile there with the ball extended, fumbled it. Difference here being that, was it Chris Hubbard? No, not Chris Hubbard. Sam Hubbard?
Sam Hubbard.
Chris Hubbard's the lineman. Yeah, Sam Hubbard catches it out of midair and takes it 98 yards to the house for a game-winning touchdown. What a crazy, crazy finish to the game. I didn't think this one was going to be that close either. I thought the Bengals were across the Ravens.
Yeah.
So the Ravens did a lot better than I thought.
Division game. You never know how that happens.
That's it. You know each other real well when you play each other twice a year. And then when you play that third time, it really does kind of all bets are off.
I feel like that comes down to coaching. It comes down to what your coaches change and do to keep the other team off on their toes. And then obviously tonight's game, Cowboys at the Buccaneers. Expect the Cowboys to be the Cowboys. Expect Tom Brady to be Tom Brady. Buccaneers win this by 2 scores.
I think it's going to be a lot of turnovers tonight.
Oh, I agree. It's just how it's going to be.
Might be more defensive points than offensive tonight. That's where I'm going to go.
It very well could be. So again, we thank you guys so much for listening. This was a little bit longer episode than we wanted to, but again, we're just getting into the off season. We're super excited to talk Steelers football all year long with you guys. If you guys like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things, comment, let us know. Who do you want us to keep in free agency? Who do you want us to get rid of? Who are you just tired of seeing their number, their name on the team, and you want them gone? Let us know, and we'll talk about it next week on this episode of Steelers by the Lake. Anyways, again, thank you guys so much. Be sure to like and follow on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Subscribe and ring the bell. It's free, gosh darn it. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.